Hey everybody, welcome to the Midwest. It's kind of a random time for me to be doing a live. Normally I don't do lives on Tuesday afternoons, but today just so happens to be a day whenever I had a client scheduled and something came up, and so we had to reschedule. So I'm like, okay, I have some time free. It's also important that I do this today because this week is so crazy busy that I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to do it later this week. And I am traveling. So this weekend I have a lot of traveling to do. So on Friday, I'm not going to be able to do my regular weekly check-in. And so this week, hey, it's on a Tuesday afternoon as opposed to a Friday afternoon. So let's kind of embody the spirit of a Friday afternoon. Even because normally it's on a Friday afternoon. Let's embody that spirit right now and have a nice session to just chat and catch up. This week has been really an awesome week. We had, hopefully you guys were there. Be sure to say hello if you're here. Hopefully the chat's working. I'll say hello to you. Let's see here. There it is. And I don't know if you can respond to that. Let's see, live chat. I think that's on. So I think it's on. Anybody? So, there you go. Okay, great. Good to have you here, guys. Good to see you. So anyway, but yeah, so if you guys, hopefully you were here on Sunday night. Sunday night was this channel's celebration of World Breathing Day. And to be honest, it was just a really special occasion for me because I got to spend it with some other breath workers that I love and admire. I love working with Chuck McGee. I love working with Rob Linfesti. And so it kind of happened out of nowhere. I was planning on having something for World Breathing Day. And then Chuck, he called me. He's like, hey, man, what are you doing for World Breathing Day? And that's like, I guess a typical thing to talk about if you're a breath worker is, what are you doing for World Breathing Day? And so we were talking about that, and he's like, okay, hey, maybe we should invite everybody. So the idea originally started, and I am going to get to some of your questions here in just a minute, by the way. And I had a specific question that I wanted to address about Wim Hof method. So I am going to get to that in just a second, but I just wanted to kind of shoot the breeze with you just for a second to start off. But the idea originally was going to be that we were going to invite like all of the breath workers that we know. And then we started making this list, and it was going to be like a dozen people. And by the time we had gotten to 12 or 13 breath workers that we know, we're like, yeah, I don't know if we can actually do a session with this many breath workers leading the session. Like, it might be like each person gets 1 minute. Each person gets exactly 1 minute. It's like, okay, you have a whole minute, to go. Or I don't know, I guess if it were 12, but we were still thinking of other names by the time we got to our 12th breath worker. So Edward, thanks so much for that. Sunday was just a lot of fun. And if you guys missed it, if anybody missed it, I know it wasn't available in every time zone, and this is a global audience and just a really awesome tribe. So if you've missed it, you can go to my channel, and I'm leaving it up forever, available to everybody. World Breathing Day 2021. Let's remember that date and move forward, and hopefully have a nice, a beautiful spring. Here in the Midwest, we're starting to have some spring showers. And of course, in the lower 48, it looks like we might get some cooler temperatures. So we were up in the Midwest, it was 70 degrees, which is, what is that? 70 degrees. So divide by 2. No. What is it? Subtract 32 and then divide by 2. So, okay. So that puts me at, well, it was approximately, it was right around 20, a little lower than 20 Celsius for my Celsius people, which is like everybody else. I know it's strange. But anyway, it was really starting to turn into spring weather, and it even got up to some of the summer temperatures. And now it's kind of back into the chilly weather, which is nice. The longer I've been enjoying cold showers again. I know that sounds crazy. Some of you guys, dial-up sounds. I know some of you guys have been recently reaching out to me talking about you've been taking ice baths, and you're like, why did I ever take a cold shower when I could just take an ice bath? They're so much better. And I agree with you. I'm going to take an ice bath. I've got time set aside. Actually, right after this broadcast, I'm going to go take an ice bath. But I also have been enjoying some cold showers, so it's been kind of nice in that respect. But hey, I've been getting some messages, and I'm planning on making an actual video, like a dedicated video to this topic. But I know this is something that a lot of people have questions on, and it's something that I think sometimes people are almost kind of embarrassed to say, hey, when I do Wim Hof method breath work, I feel more anxiety rather than less anxiety, which is what the whole, one of the whole goals of Wim Hof method breath work is. And so I wanted to talk about it on a live so I can kind of just elaborate. If you guys have questions, you can always put them in the comments over here, and I'd be happy to address those as well. This is also, I'm going to do mailbag and Q&A today. So I'm going to go through this particular question that I've been getting actually a lot more in the past month. What happened, it's kind of interesting. So over here in the Midwest, in my inbox, it's interesting how a lot of the questions are seasonal. So I get a lot of cold training questions, of course, whenever it's the winter months, usually, in my hemisphere, I'll get a lot more cold questions. And then I get a lot more breath work questions in the summertime. And it seems as though right now I'm getting a lot of questions about specifically anxiety. And of course, there's no big mystery there as far as why, we have a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiety in the world today. And I think a lot of people are trying Wim Hof method to try to ameliorate their anxiety. And so some people are reaching out, and I've gotten multiple emails this past few weeks saying, listen, I'm trying to do this Wim Hof method. I found your channel, Jesse. I saw your review of Wim Hof method, thought it looked awesome. Started trying it. I was doing the breath work with the online, the app. So as they were doing Joshua, I'm going to get to your question here in just a minute. I love that question. But a lot of the people were doing the breath work with the app, with a guided breathing bubble, or they were doing breath work with like some random, guided thing on YouTube. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But one way or the other, they were doing some kind of Wim Hof method breath work, and afterwards they felt more anxiety than before they did it. And yes, this happens. It's not the typical thing that happens. More often than not, a person will feel far better, in every way after Wim Hof method breathing. If you practice Wim Hof method breath work, you know what I'm talking about. Usually, I always describe it as a relaxed, energized state, right? You're relaxed, you have energy afterwards, but it's not static energy. It's not nervous, anxious energy. It's a relaxed energy. And it's kind of, basically it puts you in that state of flow. And that's why I love doing it. And that's why so many people around the world love doing it. Well, not everybody has this happen. Some of us will do Wim Hof method breath work and feel more anxious. And a lot of times a person will feel more anxious as they're doing it, even to the point where they kind of freak out as they're doing it in the middle of it. And so I've trained so many people in this method over the years that I've seen a lot of the reactions that people have. And so if you are one of these people, or if ever you are talking to a person that, if you have friends who are feeling anxious or that sort of thing, well, here is some advice. Now, the biggest piece of advice, actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about YouTube, right? You're watching me on YouTube. Many of you know me because of YouTube. YouTube is a wonderful platform. It allows us to share ideas and messages, and really, it's been it's an excellent place to go learn things for free, and it's something that's awesome. However, there are a lot of, whenever you go to YouTube, anybody can create a YouTube channel, and if you have some skill with video editing and maybe you have some cool background music, you can make it seem as though you know what you're talking about through subconscious messaging, and you can give some terrible advice, and and then the next thing you know, people are having awful reactions because of this terrible advice that you never even knew gave it, because you're just sending stuff out on YouTube. There are some people on YouTube that are giving advice on Wim Hof method that's just kind of bad. It's just really rough. And I see a lot of people just getting into Wim Hof method, kind of chasing the high, or a lot of breath work, just chasing the high. And there's nothing wrong with getting high on your own supply. It's something that I love to do. I enjoy the feeling, and I get that. But so often a person will do that at the detriment of everything else. And in doing so, the person learns how to overbreathe. The person will be, really breathing like incredibly violently and sending unconsciously. You don't even realize you're sending these signals to your autonomic nervous system that you are in a state of fight or flight. And so overbreathing and really there's a certain degree of, you need to relax. So tip number one right now, I would like is remember the relaxation element. It all comes down to relaxation. And so, watch yourself as, really be mindful as you're doing the breath work of any kind. And I don't care if it's Wim Hof method. I don't care what kind of breath work it is. Typically, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make when doing super ventilation style breath work, and Wim Hof method is one of those, is that they like they're not doing it through the nose. They overbreathe to the point where they're only sending stress signals to their autonomic nervous system. Now, you especially see this in people who are starting off their breathwork practice, and sadly enough, that is generally the people that are emailing me about this. They're saying, "Hey, I'm trying Wim Hof method. I'm feeling more stress. I thought I was supposed to feel less stress." And the thing is, when you guys are starting off, and when I say I mean whoever it is, the people they're emailing me, basically they're not aware of how all this stuff works. And okay, when it comes to, a little plug for my 6-week course. This is what I talk about in my 6-week course, is how it all works, right? What all this is actually doing. But if you're if you're going through and you're doing any kind of superventilation, if you're doing any kind of like Wim Hof method style, remember to stay relaxed, because your body is listening at all times. And so if you're constantly tensing up, if you're just really kind of, I always say, I used to really want to muscle the breath. So not just Wim Hof method, but also other superventilation techniques, but specifically Wim Hof method. I always wanted to really power, do it. And you're really working against yourself if you have that happen. And Joshua Haynes actually said, I don't know if you're meaning this as a rhetorical question, Joshua, but you say they hyperventilate versus superventilate. And I love how you put that, because technically hyperventilation is when it's uncontrolled. Superventilation is when it's controlled. Okay. So that's typically the difference. However, both of them describe a state where you're over breathing and you're creating a CO2 deficit in your system. So here's the thing, when it comes down to it, is it's more like, and thank you for that question to help me clarify that. But really what I see so often is it's an issue of form, and it's an issue of flow, and it's an issue of staying relaxed, and it's an issue of tensing up too much and chasing the high, as opposed to really getting in tune with your breath. So that is one of the things. The other thing is that oftentimes a person is just, especially when you're starting off with breath work, right? Most of the time, this is how it works. And this is how it worked for me. When I started breathwork, I started breathwork specifically with Wim Hof method. I take that back. I started with pranayama, but I was so disconnected from my sense of introspection that I didn't notice all of these awesome aspects of pranayama. And I needed something to hit my over the head, and I needed to really feel it. Well, Wim Hof method breathwork does that. And the problem I had early on, and this is something that I see people having when they have more anxiety due to Wim Hof method breathing, is that because they're chasing the high, they feel like that's the thing we need to chase. They ignore things like breath mechanics. And you don't know them, right? Because this is the first real breath work you've ever tried. So focusing on breath mechanics, focusing on the aspects of breath that lead to better breathing throughout your entire life is really important, because you got to remember, whenever you practice any style of breath work, I don't care what it is, you're practicing, right? You're reinforcing certain habits, and it's possible that you're going to come out of this session, especially if you've been really tensed up and you've been really not relaxed. If you've been doing it in a way that, like I say, you're muscling the technique, you're going to come out of that session just probably, well, you're definitely coming out of the session more fight or flight than you went in, and you're going to have the adrenaline and all these things, and you're not able to really take advantage of the other aspects of that protocol. So this is another reason why it's important not to look at one specific technique or even a collection of techniques. Breathwork there's a lot to it, and it's worth looking into. It's worth researching. The other thing is, when you do a guided breathwork session online, and if you follow my channel, I do have a few guided breathwork sessions. If you're in my Patreon club, you have a lot of my guided sessions. But you got to remember, when you're doing a guided session, you are no longer, if you're following someone else's advice, right? You're putting that person in charge of your breathing, as opposed to you taking charge of your breathing and really feeling it out, deciding where your breath should go and how fast or how slow your breath should be. So in my one little tip I'd like to give you is to try to do less of that. Yes, I'm saying try to listen to yourself, even if, yes, I have those guided techniques. That's great. But also learn to listen to yourself so that you can determine how fast, how deep, how should I do the breath for my own personal physiology. And again, if you want to find out more about this, after I finish this live, I don't think I put the links in the description box. So after I finish the live, I will put the links in the description box to my 6-week breath mastery course, because I teach you how to measure all those things. And we go through proper breath mechanics. We go through the basics, but we also go through a lot of the in-depth stuff that makes you you'll know everything about breath work, really, that you need to know to create your own techniques if you wanted to, based off of your own physiology. So we go really deep into these subjects. So that's something I'll put in the description box below afterwards. I did get, let's see here. So those are my biggest tips on if you're feeling anxiety, and also be mindful of your breath after practicing Wim Hof method breath work. Are you still kind of over breathing? Are you still huffing and puffing after you get done with the session? Are you breathing through the mouth still throughout the day? There are a lot of things that a lot of times we're not really aware of, even how they work. And so you really do want to be mindful of how you're breathing after you finish a session of Wim Hof method style breath work, because that will inform your autonomic nervous system as to what is, how you should approach everything else. So those are some of my tips for specifically if you're feeling anxiety more from doing Wim Hof method rather than feeling the typical, what most people feel afterwards, which is a sense of energized relaxation. Now, I think I have a question over here from Joshua. He says, recommendations on dealing with allergies. They are killing me this season. Yeah, Joshua, I hear you, my friend. This is something I've dealt with my whole life. I've always had allergies. And It's something that if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I no longer take allergy medicine. And this was mind-blowing to me. And what I realized is that it really started to hit me when I was practicing Wim Hof method in my first year. So for me, I noticed, now see, my allergies every year were getting worse. And I was taking medications year round. So I wasn't just taking allergies during technically, that allergy season. I was taking them year round for environmental allergies, indoors and outdoors. Well, what happened was, and if you take allergy medicines, and Joshua, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you take allergy medicine, you know that it doesn't really make the allergies go away completely. You still feel kind of awful, but it makes you feel just less awful, right? It doesn't really make them go away. It just makes your life a little bit more tolerable. Well, I started noticing that instead of just having a tolerable experience, I had, you hear me, Joshua says, yep. So I started noticing within my first few months that I started having less and less of any kind of symptoms. And about December or January, I forget exactly when it was, I was taking 10-minute cold showers, and these cold showers, we're talking about 4 degrees Celsius, which is about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And so it got really cold, really, really cold showers. I was taking 10-minute long. I mean, just really, really very, very deep in my cold training and breath work. It was only Wim Hof method that I did at the time. And I noticed that not only I was still taking my allergy medications, but I was noticing that I didn't feel any allergies at all. And I was like, okay, it is kind of the off season. My winter allergies were pretty mild compared to spring, and fall and summer, right? Winter, I guess, was the one season that wasn't quite as bad. But I was like, I don't feel any problem. I don't have any problems at all. I feel clear-headed finally. I can actually breathe through my nose again. And so I made the decision. I was like, I'm going to try to not take any of these allergy medications. I'm going to try to just see what happens. So I stopped taking my allergy medications in the winter, well before the spring hit. And I noticed that I never had to take allergy medications again. I have never taken allergy medications after that day. So I think this was back in 2015. And that has been my story. Now, I will say this, if you've been a fan of this channel, you might know that in 2020, I did a dumb thing, and I stopped my regular cold exposures. I stopped doing ice baths. I did some cold showers, but I didn't really do much. And I found out that my allergies started to come back. So I started to get those symptoms again. So I never want anybody to think, I don't want anybody to take away Jesse cured his allergies with Wim Hof method. Or in my case, it really, I connect it specifically to cold training, because even though I was doing Wim Hof method breath work, I was doing not very much cold training, and my allergies were coming back. And actually, I didn't notice whenever I first started Wim Hof method, I just did the breath work and I didn't do the cold training with it. And my allergies still were just totally bad. It wasn't until I combined the two, and really that cold change. No, Hickory. Hickory, I said don't. So this is why I like this audience. I feel like, I don't know, and it may just me projecting this on you guys, but I feel like a lot of you guys watch the same shows that I like, have the same stupid sense of humor that I have. And you just proved it, Hickory. So, but basically what happened was the cold really is what activated whatever it is. And I'll tell you what I think. I mean, there's, if you go to wimhofmethod.com, you can find out like the interleukins that are activated and that are deactivated, and you can read the full report. I'm not going to go through that right now. And go to wimhofmethod.com to find out more about Wim Hof Method, right? But the thing is, it was really the cold that made the big difference in my life, and it made the big difference whenever I was being alleviated of my symptoms, and it made a big difference whenever I was getting those symptoms back during the spring of 2020. And it sucked during the spring of 2020 to start having any kind of symptoms like that, because that's whenever, at least in my area, our COVID numbers were going up. So it was just like, oh no, I didn't really think I had COVID, but you know what I'm saying? No one wants to be around the guy who's a little sniffly when there's a global pandemic. But anyway, so the cold for me has really been the biggest element. And so Joshua, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice, and this is perfect timing. Normally, what I've done multiple years in a row, I've made a dedicated video on natural ways to treat your allergies. And I'm just treating them, right? I'm not curing them, because if I don't continue this treatment, the symptoms do come back, for me at least. Now, what happens is, yes, Rusty, I said interleukin. So it's interleukin 10, and then it makes, so you can go to wimhofmethod.com. I'm not going to explain it all right now. So anyway, hola, Elena. So anyway, so I noticed that it was the cold that really did it for me. And as long as I stay with a regular cold training regimen, that is what keeps me from having my symptoms. Now, here's the thing. That is the primary reason. That's the thing that reminds me, Jesse, you got to get over whatever you're busy or whatever. You got to make time for this ice bath. Like literally in about 15 minutes, I've got to go take the ice bath, because it's in my garage, right? I've got a chest freezer that's filled with water, and it's cold in my garage. It's about 4:00 or about 4-ish, somewhere a little around after 4:00. I want to do that because my wife and my child will get home around 5, and I don't want to be in the garage in this chest freezer in front of my 5-year-old. I don't want him to see daddy doing that just yet. Maybe eventually. He sees me ice bathe all the time. I'm just saying, I don't like him seeing me in the chest freezer, just because I don't want him to get curious. And then, I have it under lock and key, and there's weights on top, and I've got it really secure, but still, I don't want him to get curious and let's see, I want to go take a swim like daddy does. And then, God knows what will happen there. So that's why I always try to make sure I do it at an off time. Also, just a little FYI, maybe even TMI, right? Too much information. Whenever the garage door goes up, I don't want to be getting out of the cold, my ice chest, because for my European friends, you guys actually, the guys wear like the Speedo stuff. And now I don't have a banana hammock, but I've got like stuff that here in the Midwest, especially, but here in the United States, most of the time guys wear these big trunks. And let me tell you, for a regular ice bather, this is you want to go for like the less is more. Let me just say less is more. So I don't want the garage door going up and the neighbors, and they're like, what is he doing? I try to conceal it from the neighbors. This year I started getting, my book went off really well. And so people are starting to be like, we had a really good snow, and I was getting some messages from the neighbors being like, hey, why don't I see you outside? And I was like, they know now. So I was like, well, I've been in my backyard. And that's the thing. I normally stay in my backyard whenever I roll around in the snow. But anyway, the nice thing is my neighbors have been really accepting now that they've kind of found out. So, because I'm not the kind of guy that I'm going to go around just like showboating. I was when I first started, but I moved to a new neighborhood after that, and I was trying to kind of keep it on the down low. Do people say the down low anymore? Do you guys keep it on the down low? Anyway, the point. Anyway, it's not Friday, it's Tuesday, but I feel like it's a Friday. But long story short, that is what helped my allergies. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Not every person that I've ever trained who has had allergies, who I've trained in cold training or Wim Hof method or in breath work or even in nutrition and any kind of training, physical fitness, anything. Yeah, it's keep it on the DL too. People used to say that. Thank you, Eric. But anyway, Eric's 58 and he knows this. All right. Well, but maybe that ages us. But anyway, right, Eric? Okay. So, but the point is, it's not necessarily worked for everybody, but it's worked for a lot of people. So going back to the original question, Joshua, I highly recommend getting into a cold training regimen if you are suffering from allergies. And here is a little cherry on top suggestion for you. Okay. Take a cold shower every night. Okay. Why every night, Jesse? Why does it matter? Well, it matters because first of all, if you suffer from allergies, you should always take a shower at night because you will mechanically, right? You will physically remove pollen from your body. Okay. So you're going to remove any irritants. So that just naturally helps you sleep better, which helps you wake up better, which helps you have a better day, which is going to just be a good thing for your life. Right. But the other thing is though, that what I have found is if I take a cold shower in the evening, another thing that cold showering will help you with is it can help with lymph. So it helps you circulate your lymph, which is another issue that oftentimes, allergy sufferers have. So it helps circulate the lymph. It helps with, of course, with alleviating the symptoms. So you're going to get a lot of the symptoms that you might have picked up during the day. So like any inflammation and things like that, it'll alleviate those things with the shower. And so basically you've got you've got a lot of things working for you. So even if it doesn't immediately work, which I know everybody wants it to immediately work, we all want it to immediately work. But for me, it took between 6 and 8 months before I even started to say, hey, wait a minute. I'm starting to notice that I don't have any symptoms at all. Right. So, I guess the reason why I was able to be so patient wasn't because I'm such a patient person. It was actually because I didn't know it was a possibility. It wasn't even something I was expecting. So it was just eventually I started to notice, oh, wait a minute. I don't feel this anymore. Okay. So that was where I was coming from there. And I was just teasing you, Eric, about, I hope you weren't actually calling me an ass. Let's see here. 5 months in my ass. See, exactly. So the thing is, it takes time. It takes time to accumulate these benefits sometimes. For at least for most people I've talked to, it's not an overnight thing. You will receive some benefits pretty immediately, but it can take time for the accumulated effects to really sink in. And that's how it works for me. What happened with me in spring of 2020 is that I didn't notice my symptoms coming back overnight either. It took a few weeks of me being really lax on my ice bathing. And I would say probably about a month of hardly any cold showers or, hardly any cold exposure. And then I was like, man, I life sucks again. Oh yeah, I haven't been doing my cold exposure. And so, at that point, it took about a month before all the symptoms went away again. So it's something, that's why I have to stay consistent. And that's why the winter months are easier for me to stay consistent because a cold shower is so easy. I'm going to shower most days, right? So, it's not like, so it's one of those things where at least I know, okay, I've at least got the shower. I can hit the shower, but today I'm going to take an ice bath after this. I'm going to take a shower, then I'm going to take an ice bath. Anyway, so that is some advice to you, Joshua, and I hope that helps. And stick around on the channel. I'm going to try to make some other videos about other things, because I get a lot of questions around this. I think because, I do. I just get a lot of questions around this, and I also get a lot of questions specifically from people who live in areas where spring and fall and summer, where there are a lot of allergens. And so there's a lot of things a person can do. Also I get the question, should I take the, medicine, right? Should I take allergy medicine? Should I take allergy medicine? Think about that one for a minute, because I think sometimes we get into this health and wellness world and we feel guilty for taking any kind of medicine as if that's some kind of like we have to be puritanical, or like we're trying to prove something to somebody. And it depends on who you're talking to. For me, I would rather see you, especially as you're doing these practices that hopefully will lead you away from taking the medicine. Okay. I don't want, medicine makes us lazy, or at least a lot of prescription medications make us lazy. And they make it so that once we get on it, then we're great. But then I'm never going to change my ways. I'm just going to lean into taking the medicine, as opposed to, I'm just going to add another medicine if I have more problems. But my advice to you, Joshua, or anybody else, is specifically to, if you have allergies, I would rather see you take an allergy medication that opens up your sinuses enough for you to breathe through your nose throughout the day, rather than you being a mouth breather throughout the day. I would rather see that. And then you can with breath work and with practice, you can even practice opening the sinuses even more from there. And some people report that simply just using breath work is something that keeps them from having, it actually opens up the sinuses and alleviates their allergies as well. So sometimes it's a matter of if you don't use it, you lose it. My dog is asking me to go out here in just a minute. So here in a minute, I'm going to have to cut this short. I don't know. He might have just been teasing. We'll see if he comes back. But the thing is, I would rather see you take a medication that is a decently safe medication, and actually be able to do breathing through your nose, and actually, because that's going to prevent a whole host of other problems. Plus, I want to keep you in the habit of breathing through your nose rather than turning you into a mouth breather, and you feel good about yourself because you're not taking this medicine. So we always have to weigh our options. We have to weigh the benefits and the cost benefit analysis, in other words. So P. Haggerty asks, do you unplug the ice chest freezer prior to getting in? Yes, P. Haggerty, I do. Actually, I think I was one of the first people in the United States to do chest freezer. But it was after I saw a guy doing it, and he posted it to the Wim Hof Facebook group, and he didn't unplug his chest freezer, and he didn't have any safety precautions at all. And I don't know what happened to the guy. Like, I actually interacted with him quite a bit because I was like, hey, what are you doing there? That's kind of cool. I asked him, okay, did you put any caulking around it, or how'd you waterproof it or anything? He's like, no, I just put water in it and turned it on and got in. I'm like, sounds a little like suicide to me, but so he and we had a lot of interaction, and then I kind of just lost touch with him. And then I don't know whatever happened to the guy. So if you're out there, I think his name was either Mike or Mark. I forget. He's from California. Reach out to me. I'd love to know I hope you're still living. Hopefully you didn't electrocute yourself, because that's one of the things that I was like, man, I noticed that the light was on. He'd open it up and the light would stay on. And I'm like, that looks like a death trap to me. That to me, just to me, seems like, a problem waiting to happen. So I always unplug. Any tips on electrical concerns? So once you unplug that, P. Haggerty, and I know you've emailed me with your actual name before, but I'm just going to call you P. Haggerty because, hey, why not? Once you unplug it, you're fine. As long as you unplug it. And I've checked with, I talked to a bunch of electricians. I talked to specifically guys from Whirlpool or what was it? Whirlpool? Yeah, I think it's whatever, Maytag. Talked to the guy from Maytag, and they all confirmed that as long as it's unplugged, it's totally safe. Just make sure you're not in it while it's plugged in. How often do you change the water, and what is the preferred method of maintenance to keep your water pH balanced? Okay, yeah, and you give me the nerd emoji because you're really nerding out, aren't you? Okay, so I don't really do the pH. I don't care what pH balance is in there. I'm so lazy. So the reason I did this was because I'm lazy. Now, I would highly recommend. There is a guy on Facebook who created a group called the Chest Freezer Plunge Group, and he is fantastic. He's out of Texas, and he wrote an entire book about how to convert your chest freezer and do all these cool things, like just really cool things. And some of my friends and people that I've met over the years, they'll show me how they've converted their chest freezer into something that was just like these works of art. And I'm like, that is so cool. But the thing is, for me, it was because I'm lazy and I didn't really want to do the work of creating an ice bath every day. And I'm cheap, right? It's cheap and lazy. So for me, I've never really gotten into much of the handiwork aspect. Literally, I don't show it on this channel because it's so ugly. Like I don't know. Sometime I'll show it on the channel, but it's just like a Frankenstein monster garbage water that I get into. Now, how often do I change out the water? Less often than what I admit in public. Because it's just me, right? And what I'll do, okay, so over the winter time, it gets harder and harder to change out the water. Over the winter time, you don't need to change out the water so much because I'm going outside doing cold air exposures as well. But I will say right now, the water I'm going to get into in just a minute has been over a month. It's been over a month since I've changed it out. Now, am I embarrassed when I tell you that? Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed. That's probably pretty gross. But again, I'm going to shower before I go in. I'm going to shower when I get out. It's literally there for a purpose of keeping me cold. Like it's not like the water stinks or there's like little floaties on the top or anything. It actually smells very good. I have lavender scented bath salt in it. So Epsom salts that are lavender scent. I smell great when I get out. But I always wash before and after just so that I can keep the water in there longer. Some companies, there's all kinds of companies that are coming out of the woodwork now making these cold plunges. And I would there is a company that I'm kind of talking to, kind of like how whenever, we were, if you're in high school, I'm just talking to this girl, right? We're just talking. I'm kind of talking to this company to see if I can possibly get one of theirs. And they've got it's just like really pretty. I mean, it's just like a work of art that you get into, and it's got filters and all this stuff. But again, since 2016, I've had this same chest freezer going. And so back then and then all the way to this day in 2021, I've been using the same chest of freezer. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, if I get like a pre-made, like a really nice deep plunge, like a cold plunge, I'm going to, I'll just take out the pond liner and use it to store, and use it as a regular deep freeze like normal people use because it still works. I can't believe how resilient deep freezes are. I never knew just how resilient these devices are, but man, they keep going despite all this craziness. So anyway, let's see, Samuel. If guys, I do have super chats, so if you want to make sure your question gets answered, I've got about 15 more minutes before I have to go take my ice bath. So I'd be happy to answer your question. I'm going to just a new one popped up. It says, "Hi Jesse." The person used an emoji. I think that gets my attention, right? So, hi Jesse. I think I have some more clarification on when I asked last time that you collaborate with the unconscious and you can raise your skin temperature in response to cold like WHM in brain over body. I think I have some. Okay, that's good. Good. I don't think you're okay. There is a question mark at the end. I'm not sure what the question is about. But yes, I mean, if you're curious about that study, take a look at it. It's an amazing thing that I would say we have the capacity to do things that, I mean, it used to just be the mystics that were able to do it, right? We used to just be, it used to just be the charlatans for the most case, right? It used to be fake, probably for a lot of the times. But there were people that were able to do it for real. And yeah, mind over body, it's a real thing. So yeah, now we have the science, and that was something that WHM did at Wayne State University. Actually, Dr. Otto Music was the guy that, if you've read my book, he's the neuroscientist that I worked with to help me understand a lot of the aspects of how breath works with our brains and with our autonomic nervous system and all that stuff. I worked with that same scientist on my book, as did that exact study, and it was groundbreaking study. It was a fantastic study. So yeah, definitely take a look at that. Let's see here. I'm going to try to scroll up and see, how often should you take an ice bath? Jay, as long as you want, really, or Johnny S. How often should you take an ice bath? I would say no more than once a day, but I've taken more than one in a day. Just to give you an idea. Here's the thing, just because, okay, first of all, the reason I wrote my ebook on cold training was specifically because I wanted to give people guide rails for cold training, because I've been cold training since 2015 or 2014. I guess 2014. So asking me that question is going to be different than asking someone who's just started off. And you got to remember, there's a lot of it depends in a question and answer like this. So check out my ebook. It's on my website, jessecoomer.com, and that will help you decide what the answer really is for you. Let's suppose you're me, and for me, I'll take an ice bath whenever I want to. And what that means is some weeks I'll have an ice bath every day. Some weeks I'll take an ice bath once in a week. Other weeks I go the whole week without an ice bath. So it's really hard to answer that. It depends on your goals. It depends on your physiology, your level of training. And so it also depends on the temperature of the water. It depends on the temperature that you've trained with, how often you've trained with that temperature, how long you've been training, the duration. So all of those things I cover in the ebook. So it's a small price to get the kind of those guide rails. So I recommend it. But it's one of those questions. It's so hard for me to answer. And I get it a lot. And I apologize. I don't mean to be I don't mean to be cryptic in the answer, because I wish I could just say 3 a week, take five a week, one a day. I will say that regular cold exposure is great. It's ideal. So, but what is regular? And always, can I take a day off? A lot of those questions, I answer all those questions in the ebook. And it always depends on where you are. So the simple answer, the answer that is kind of the generic answer, but it's generic because it's not a bad answer. It's a good answer, is that you should go by the way you feel. But whenever I asked that question back in the day, and someone told me that, I would get really frustrated. I'm like, just give me an answer. Just tell me, dude, just, and the reality is that it's complicated. So it's just one of those complicated things. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Oh man, bunch of stuff coming in. Thank you for all the good advice. I will start taking cold showers in the evening from now on. Awesome, Tor Ivor. That sounds like a great idea. Evenings is a great time to do it. It helps me sleep. Sadly enough, it's also the only time I have in the day, oftentimes, to do it. I've never wanted. I can take a cold shower in the morning, but for some reason, I've just never gotten in the habit of taking it. I've never really taken a lot of ice baths in the morning. I've done it before, but I love your last guided breathing session on YouTube, says Ricky Loca. What happens to your body with that breath work compared to Wim Hof? So that's a great question. So here's the thing. All breath work is working with the same stuff. And this is where, whenever I do interviews, I talk about the book I wrote, A Practical Guide to Breath Work. The reason I wrote the book was because the book didn't exist that I felt that needed to exist, right? Because this kind of question, once you understand how it all works, how breathing works, then you'll understand. And I really appreciate the question. The issue here is, I'm trying to think of a similar kind of a question to kind of illustrate. It's the question. Once you understand how all breathing works, how it works, you'll see that there's that again. It's a kind of a complex answer and a complex question. So it's not like there's one kind of breathing will do this, one kind of breathing will do that. That's when you first start learning about breathing. A lot of times people will learn techniques, right? That's how I started. You learn techniques, you kind of gather techniques, and this technique will do this, and this technique will do that. And that's true to a certain degree. There are certain techniques. Okay, maybe you'll say, well, box breathing, I think, is a really a common example. Most people are familiar with box breathing. You inhale for a certain amount of time, you hold for a certain amount of time, you exhale for a certain amount of time, you hold for a certain amount of time, and they're all even. Why are they all even? What's happening on the breath hold at the top? Why do we put the breath hold at the top? Why do we have the breath hold at the bottom? Why don't we go a little bit longer on the exhale? How much should you fill the lung on the inhale? How far should you exhale on the exhale? So of course, the technique is inhale, hold, exhale, hold. All of them are even times. And the common explanation is when you do this, you balance the autonomic nervous system and you calm yourself down without putting yourself to sleep, right? But why does all that work? Why does it all work? And so this is why I wrote the book, and this is specifically why I wrote the 6-week breath mastery class. I'm not just trying to plug it here. It's just that let me just tell you, the 6-week breath mastery class is a live class. We meet for 2 hours a week, and I explain all of this. That's 12 hours of instruction. The reason why I'm telling you that is because I'm letting you know, if you want to know all this, it takes me 12 hours of instruction, right? And it's not just me sitting here telling you I hate data dumps. I don't like data dumps. Yes, I want to know the information, but I feel like the best way to learn something is to be able to experience it, experiment with it. And the thing is also, what happens for one person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen the same way for the other person. So for instance, guys, if all of us here were to take a deep breath and hold our breath with a full lung for about 10 seconds and then relax, and you were to test how much carbon dioxide were to come out, we would all have different readings. Interesting. Why is that? Also, if we all took a deep breath in, held with a full lung for about 10 seconds, and then exhaled, we wouldn't necessarily all have absolutely different autonomic responses. About 2 out of 3 of us would have approximately the same autonomic nervous system response, but 1 out of 3 of us we're going to have a different autonomic nervous system response. Interesting. Where do I fall? How do I know what's going on? So when it comes to techniques, it's important to know techniques. I absolutely agree with learning techniques. But if you know why all of this stuff works, you can create your own techniques. And if you know how it all works, you can make the techniques that you already know, you can make them work better. So that's a long way of me answering this question. But I don't want to. I think a lot of times it's all too easy for a person to say, well, this technique does that and this technique does that, right? You had a great question. The breathing session that we had on World Breathing Day on this channel, how is that? What did that do compared to Wim Hof method breath work? So the first question I would ask you in response to that is, go do them both, and then you tell me the difference in how you felt. So that is one way to answer the question. There's also other ways to answer the question too. So that's me getting deep into the weeds. And I know that I'm nerding out now on breath. That's just what I do. But it's just one of those things that I'm passionate about. And I think all too often, you'll see people in the breathwork space give the easy answer that misses the point. And I don't want to, I want breathwork to be something we teach to every child in school. I want breathwork to be what we teach to every high school student who's struggling to fit in. That was me back in my high school years. I'm a weird combination of extreme extrovert. And if you've met me, you've hugged me because I'm a hugger. But my whole life, I grew up like really having really bad anxiety. So I wish someone would have taught me how my breath works. How does all this stuff work together? It would be nice if we had a course. Like I remember having health class. If you're in the United States, did you remember taking health class and how much garbage that was? And it was normally, sadly enough, my experience of health class was every teacher I've ever had in health class was a person I would not exactly consider to be healthy. Just saying, teaching me garbage from a textbook, and nothing really is like, well, you go out and you play kickball or whatever. And no one told me how my breath worked. No one really explained why I wanted to eat sweets. What was it in my brain that makes me want to eat sweets? Well, if I understood that, then maybe I would have listened to them when they told me to go eat greens. What is it? Why? What are these mechanisms? If I understand the underlying mechanisms, I'm more likely to make better choices. Anyway, that I'm going on and on. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Let's see here. One more question, and then I'm going to go take an ice bath. Let's see here. Let's see. That's not a question. Let's see. Darren says it's 4 degrees Celsius. Okay. Yeah. That's a good day for some huffing. It's some good day from some cold exposure. Let's see. Here's one. Oh, wait. Okay. It bumped up. Okay. So I tried going out in wind after cold shower and I start to feel warm, but it slowly subsides is the question. Okay. So Samuel, I guess you're wanting to know, so what's the deal with that? I tried going out in wind after a cold shower, and I started to feel warm, but it slowly subsides. Ugh. Are we talking about wind chill? Are we talking about, I'm not sure, was it a hot shower, cold shower? I would need to know a little bit more about it. So let's see. Nico. Hey, yeah, Nico. I like the Huberman podcast. That's a really great podcast. So yeah, he gets my stamp of approval for the Huberman podcast. I don't get to listen to it as much as I would like to, but it's good stuff. So so when it comes to Samuel saying he's trying to practice brain over body. So that I'm not going to sit here and pretend to tell you that I am a master of brain over body. I feel like this is something that, to be honest, I think all of us can be a master of brain over body, but it takes practice. It takes belief. It takes a sincere practice to get into that. And I'm going to have to close this out because my wife and child are coming home, and I'm going to have to figure out how to sneak around and get this ice bath in, or else I'm not going to get it today. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you all for being here. Guys, I will not have the weekly session on Friday at 2 p.m., but I will. But please, definitely, if I didn't get to your question, definitely be here next week. Next week, it will be on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I would love to get you to your questions. Feel free to email me. Comments in the description box if you weren't here for the live session. Guys, thanks so much. Go out there, be kind to people, because the things that you do make a difference. There's so many people out there wanting to say that an individual life makes no difference. It has to be these big groups, but actually the things that you do make differences. The ripples you make waves in the world. So thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your week. Happy Tuesday. And don't forget to go out there and be kind to people.